What's up, y'all? Hello. Can you guys hear me? Oh, 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 oh. Can you guys hear me? Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Hello. What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? Hello. What's up, y'all? This is Sunko, the Korean bro. How are you guys doing tonight? I'm going to eat traditional Korean food and egg. I know egg is like everywhere, and that is what you eat on a daily basis worldwide. But I wanted to show you what South Korean in his 30s eat. Just so not every Korean eat like this, okay? It's just me. Okay, this is like okay, let me show you what this is. Korean style beef broth soup. Here it is. You can barely see because camera setting is a bit and here's egg. This is like a minimized version, okay? Okay, there you go. So that you can see this is like a minimized version. Okay, there you go. Minimized version. It's like dishes that you can find when you go see a guy who lives alone. You know what I mean? And currently, I'm living with my family, but I just felt like I wanted to eat less tonight. It's not like I'm on diet or anything. I just felt like it, and so what I prepared for tonight is egg, and here's gomtang. Here's gomtang, and gomtang is like one of traditional Korean food. Uh, it's Korean style beef broth soup, and like my mother cook up beef. Like my mother cook up a big pot of bone broth, and like she used a massive leg bones and cooked them in a huge pot, and she boiled them for like a long time throughout the day and night and into the night until the broth is milky. What's good is once you eat this, you get all the good calcium and all the good stuff. Homemade food. It's good stuff, right? So I might really try this, and this is what you can see everywhere in Korea too. And go try it. Normally, I would eat this with rice, but this time I'm going to just like drink it because I wanted to shorten running time of YouTube. Mm. As you can see, it's not really totally milky, not white, but it's still good. All the good stuff that comes out from bones. Mmm. So good. Okay, now one person is watching. I don't know who that is, but mmm. Mmm. It's really good. Delicious. Just so you know, not every Korean in his 30s eat like this. It's just me who eat like this. Because today I just felt like it. Okay? I wanted to eat less. And here's an egg. It's not special, and this has nothing to do with Korea. But after workout, you've got to have protein, right? But um, I don't eat um, protein that's made from a factory, or like I don't get protein from, what is it? How I can say it? Artificial protein. Like I'm not familiar with artificial protein. Once I like digest it, like I have a like diarrhea right away. So what I eat is like egg or protein, uh, which is inside like meat or any other food, homemade food or whatever that is. Good protein and stuff. Mmm. Awesome. Awesome. Hello. Hi there, Imo. Hi there. You come here late tonight. Let me show you what I ate briefly, okay? Tonight I ate gomtang, but now it's all gone. And I ate one egg. Because you've got to have protein after workout, right? I already introduced what gomtang is, because there's gotta be a lot of foreigners who has no idea what gomtang is. I just explain it like it's made out of massive like bones, and like my mother cooked them in a huge pot or anything. Like, and plus what I explained was that she boiled them for like long time throughout the day and like into the night, until it's milky. Anyway, explanations are all done. So I'm gonna have to put this away and read a book from now on, okay? All right, it's a reading time. Before I read the book, tonight I'm going to play jazz while I'm reading the book, because it's much more fun, right? I'm not sure if it's a listenable while I'm doing YouTube live, but I'm just giving it a shot. And one more thing, I've been doing YouTube live these days, like pretty much every day except Saturday and Sunday. So on Sunday, I edited one of the videos that I had taken, and it's going to be uploaded sooner or later. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's going to be out. Like I have no idea how other people would think of like my video, but like everything that I do at this point is like the beginning. Okay, just one thing. Okay. I'm at page 174, and it's like halfway done, and more to go. I'm going to keep putting an F word into it, okay? All right. And just take his head off outside, the queen added to one of the officers. But the hatter was out of sight before the officer could get to the door. Call the next witness, said the king. The next witness was the Duchess cook. She carried the paper box in her hand, and Alice guessed who it was, even before she got into the court. By the way, the people near the door began sneezing all at once. Give your evidence, said the king. Shan't, said the cook. The king looked anxiously at the white rabbit, who said in a low voice, Your Majesty must cross-examine this witness. Well, if I must, the king said with a melancholy air, and after folding his arms and frowning at the cook till his eyes were nearly out of sight, he said in a deep voice, What are tarts made of? Pepper mostly, said the cook. Trickle, said a sleepy voice behind her. Collar that dormouse, the queen shrieked out. Behead that dormouse, turn that dormouse out of court. Suppress him, pinch him off with his whiskers. For some minutes, the whole court was in confusion, getting the dormouse turned out, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. Never mind, said the king, with an air of great relief. Call the next witness, and he added in an undertone to the queen, Really, my dear, you must cross-examine the next witness. It quite makes my forehead ache. Alice watched the white rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like. For they haven't got much evidence yet, she said to herself. Imagine her surprise when the white rabbit read out, at the top of his shrill little voice, the name Alice. Alice's evidence. Here, cried Alice, quite forgetting in the flurry of the moment how large she had grown in the last few minutes, and she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below, and there they lay sprawling about, reminding her very much of a globe of goldfish she had accidentally upset the week before. Oh, I beg your pardon, she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay, and began picking them up again as quickly as she could, for the accent of the goldfish kept running in her head, and she had a vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once and put back into the jewelry box or they would die. The trial cannot be proceed, said the king in a very grave voice, until all the jurymen are back in their proper places all, he repeated with great emphasis, looking hard at Alice as he said so. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that in her haste she had put the lizard in head downwards, and the poor little thing was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right. Not that it signifies much, she said to herself. I should think it will be quite as much use in the trial one way up as the other. As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset, and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. What do you know about this business? The king said to Alice. Nothing, said Alice. Nothing whatever, persisted the king. Nothing whatever, said Alice. That's very important, the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the white rabbit interrupted. Unimportant, your majesty, means of course, he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. Unimportant, of course, I meant, the king hastily said, and went on to himself in an undertone. Important, unimportant, unimportant, important, as if he were trying which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down important, and some unimportant. Alice could see this, as she was near enough to look over their slates. But it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment, the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out silence and read out from his book. Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high to leave the court. Everybody looked at Alice. I'm not a mile high, said Alice. You are, said the king. Nearly 2 miles high, added the queen. Well, I shan't go at any rate, said Alice. Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now. It's the oldest rule in the book, said the king. Then it ought to be number one, said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. Consider your verdict, he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. There's more evidence to come yet. Please, your majesty, said the white rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. This paper has just been picked up. What's in it? Said the queen. I haven't opened it yet, said the white rabbit. But it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody. It must have been that, said the king, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Who is it directed to? Said one of the jurymen. It isn't directed at all, said the white rabbit. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, It isn't a letter after all, it's a set of verses. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting? Asked another of the jurymen. No, they're not, said the white rabbit. And that's the queerest thing about it. He must have imitated somebody else's hand, said the king. Please, your majesty, said the knave. I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end. If you didn't sign it, said the king, that only makes the matters worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. There was a general clapping of hands at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. That proves his guilt, said the queen. It proves nothing of the sort, said Alice. Why, you don't even know what they are about. Read them, said the king. The white rabbit put on his spectacles. Where shall I begin, please, your majesty? He asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end, then stop. There were the verses the white rabbit read. It was verses what White Rabbit read. And go on. That's the most important pieces of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now that the jury, if any one of them can explain it, said Alice, I'll give him sixpence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates. She doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it, but none of them attempted to explain the paper. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a word of trouble, as we needn't try to find any. And yet, I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seemed to see some meaning in them. After all, you can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said. All right, so far, said the king, and he went on muttering over the verses to himself. That's the jury, of course. I gave her one. They gave him two. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But he goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. Why, there they are, said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, my dear. I think he said to the queen. Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. Then the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence. It's a pawn, the king added in an angry tone, and everybody laughed. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentences first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head. The queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you? Said Alice. You're nothing but a pack of cards. As this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. She gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Wake up, Alice, dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. Well, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, it was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well, she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. Okay, now it's about to be over. But her sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after fashion. And this was her dream. First, she dreamed of little Alice herself. Once again, the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright, eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice and see that queer little toss of her head to keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still, as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups as the marsh hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the queen ordering off her unfortunate guest to execution. Once more the pig baby was sneezing on the Dutch's knee, while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the griffin, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the chalking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sobs of the miserable mock turtle. So she sat on, with closed eyes, and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again, and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling ship bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voice of the Shafford boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek of the griffin, and all the other queer noises would change to the confused clamor of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the place of the mock turtle's happy sobs. Lastly, she pictured herself how the same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children, and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. The end. Okay, it's so sudden. Mm. I was expecting to have long story, but story is over. At page 192, pretty much Alice had dreamt, and it was brief moment, but now she's back into reality, and she feels that it all helped her in a way she could grow up a bit more, which is a good thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of adults recommend this book to youngsters so that they can learn something from it. Mm. Okay, I was going to read this book for 30 minutes, but then now it's 27 minutes. But since I'm done reading this book, I'm going to wrap up for tonight and read something else from tomorrow. Probably uh, a genre that I like, which is a horror story. Hmm. Anyway, see you tomorrow and good night. Bye bye. One person is watching. I don't know who that is. Every now and then, one person or two people comes here and go. Anyway, see ya tomorrow. I'll see you again on Wednesday. Today is Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Oh, okay. See you again on Wednesday. But I'm planning to do YouTube live tomorrow too. Anyway, okay. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.